welcome Nalini, welcome Trupti, and welcome Parag. Literate to educated. Lessons for an ever changing India. India is in a dynamic state of change, and every generation needs some format of support to become better than the previous one. So we are here to actually speak about, working with students, thoughts, ideology, education streams, and technology, and what kind of education can go beyond syllabus. How can we enable things beyond syllabus? So before we begin anything else, just for the starter of the line, literate to educated. Your opening remarks. We can go in any sequence. Anybody who wants to start.
I think today's education is educated and qualified. Retreat is still to come because we see people who are less educated and qualified but more literate. So I think that is the difference.
Actually, good evening. Thank you very much for being here. It's definitely an honor and a privilege to be at the Pune Literary Festival. I never thought I would be sitting on this stage. The last time I was here, I was sitting listening in awe to Shobha Day. But it's great to be here today, and I think literate to educated is such an important topic, especially to be tackled when we are teaching children in schools. Yes. Somehow, we all think that education means sending your child to school. Right? There are teachers, there is a syllabus, there is material to be ingested, digested, spewed out, and our children walk out of schools educated. But education, I think, is not only about marks or degrees or certificates. I think education goes far beyond this. Education teaches us actually to relate to life at every stage. Thank you.
Thank you, Drupti. Thank you, Nalini, for setting such a clear context for all of us. Thanks.
Good evening, and it's an honor and a pleasure to be here with all of you. To me, education, I've been a product of the education system in India, and I was very disillusioned with this current education system. And that's when I began to really look at what is happening in India, and I quickly realized that actually mediocres in India excel in the US or Europe. And I was wondering why that was happening. And that's when I stumbled on this whole idea of liberal arts, and I brought liberal arts into India. Because to me, education is about learning for a lifetime, to become a lifetime learner, and to be good at whatever it is that you like doing. Rather than doing what the whole world wants you to do, you should be doing what you love doing. So I had students who joined Flames saying that they want to do a major in finance, and they would end up becoming film producers or becoming actors. And I think finding your own inner calling is what education should be all about. It should not be about becoming just literate or educated. It should be about finding your inner calling really. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So I had done my MBA. In my first job of sales, I walked up to a client and signed our first deal. And we were standing at the counter. He was signing the order form. So order form had two sections. The client had to sign and I had to sign. And after about 10 seconds, the client looked up to me and said, "Are you okay? Do you want a glass of water?" And because he realized I was shivering, finally I had a glass of water and signed my first order form. And the reason I speak about it is, in somewhere during the course of what we are going to do in the next 1 hour, I have personal questions also about speaking about how can education take care of preparing people for the lives they are about to lead. So that's something also we're going to be exploring as we move forward. But before we do all that, before we get into speaking about what can be made better and what should educationists do, let's first explore what is the strengths that we carry in the education system that we have.
We have today.
We have today. What is the if you had to point out saying, okay, this is the topmost strength that we have in our education system, what would that be?
So, Prajit, I feel in India right now we are maintaining the balance between the conservative way of studying and the technology that is coming in. And we need to do that because we can't get away from technology, but we can't be slaves of technology. So right now we are maintaining that balance, and I think that balance is very, very much needed. Otherwise, we will not be able to be harmonious with the world. So I think we are doing that right.
Parag, you want to take it on?
I think what is great about Indians is that we are multitaskers and we are jugadus. So we can find a way around, and I think that's what makes us unique. As a culture, as a society, I think that's a big advantage we have, and I think we have to leverage that advantage through our education system. Our education system is trying to box them into becoming, professionals or chartered accountants or doctors or engineers or salespeople or marketing people. I think we can be anything. I changed my profession 3 times. My grandson is going to change it maybe 8 times, and his grandson is going to change it 12 times. If the education system is going to prepare him for just one job or the first job, it's just not right. So I think the big advantage our society has is that we are multitaskers and we are really jugadus.
And I think that Jugadu word is also a part of the dictionary today because of Indians, huh? Jugad. And it also reminds me of Peter Drucker in one of his addresses to AMA, spoke about saying there are many education systems in the world where children are told to draw inside the line throughout their schooling, and they lose marks when they are drawing outside the line. And the minute they enter the corporate world, they are told to think out of the box. So it's an interesting paradox. Yeah. Nalini, but before all that, your thoughts?
I'm really glad to hear Parag's take on education and liberal arts. I think that's so important and such a change from all of us, finishing school and wanting to either become doctors and engineers. But I also think that in India, it's a good thing to have basic education. And there is a desire by the government to make education available to all children from 6 to 14. And I think all of us need a basic foundation to graft on any other kind of education for a child. So that's a strength I feel we have.
That's very valuable, I think, and that's the age, right? 6 to 14 years to work towards. Let's take a time machine question now. So, if you were in a time machine about 15 years ahead, and you got out of the time machine, and you saw the world around, and you came back to where we were, that's today, and you looked at the education system, what should we redefine so that we create citizens of tomorrow?
I think we have to prepare people for a lifetime and not their first job. I think the current education system is just too focused on getting them ready for the first job. And I think undergraduate education and postgraduate education should focus on preparing them for a lifetime. And this is one of the problems I've had with even my management at Flame and at Midas, where they say, what's going to be their starting package and things like that. That's how this ranking game begins. And I hope 15 years from now, all that is passé and technology would have taken over. But I do feel that the Guru Shishya ethos that we have needs to continue, and no matter what digitization will bring in, I don't think the context of the teacher and student relationship should really change. And I would not like to. So 15 years from now, whilst everybody is saying that EdTech is going to take over conventional education, I don't think it will. I do think that the Indians are, we like to talk to our guru. I don't think kids today look for information or knowledge because it's available in thin air. I think what they're looking for is direction. They don't want freedom. They have plenty of freedom. What they want is direction. I think we grew up in a society where freedom was a problem. So we feel our kids want freedom. But they don't want freedom. What they need is direction. And I think if we gave them direction, they would be fine.
As I said, one has to be taught to understand the world around, the physical world and everything, that knowledge about it, then I think I would suggest that people need to be, their personality needs to be groomed. Yes. And with personality, what do I mean? I mean social skills. Because if we are going to live in a world which is becoming smaller, we need to interact with people. We need to learn how to communicate with people. Understanding of people, that is something. Then another thing is our values, right? That will be important. If 15 years hence, each one of us has to believe in integrity, in honesty, that has to be believed by us. Yes.
Thank you. I think it's a very valuable view. I think personality, ethos, of and how we think, right? What's your view, Tripti, on this?
Rajit, as I mentioned, that we need to have good balance between a conservative way of learning and technology. That is what even Parag sir now suggested, that Guru Sishya thing has to go on. Yes, because I think students now very focused. They have lot of availability of the material all around, because everything is at the door. You open the smartphone and you have ample amount of stuff there. But they need companion, they need guidance who can guide them what is right and what is wrong. And if teachers can do that part, there's nothing like that. Because I think now, as both the parents are working, so before, I think when we were young, when we were in school, and parents used to give us time. But now in today's life, everyone is busy. And teachers do play a very important role in today's world. So maintaining that balance is very, very important. Teaching them core values of maybe compassion, commitment, courage, giving them exposure for this is very, very important.
Sure. And I think somewhere we realize that we are also speaking about things beyond the syllabus right now. It reminds me actually of a joke I read on a Teachers' Day this year. It said, on Teachers' Day, a professional writes back to his teacher and says, "Dear teacher, whatever I am today is because of you." He just wants to express his gratitude. And the teacher writes back saying, "Don't blame us, we tried our best." So, so irrespective of what you become, the reality is you learn in the schools a lot beyond just the syllabus. You learn actually life and response to life. And interestingly, all of you use the words ethos, values, personality. None of this is a format of a school. So, what are your thoughts on saying, as educationists, what can you do to focus on these areas which a syllabus doesn't define, meaning creation of a human being literally for the future world? Hey, I'm not calling out names because I'm sure you can set a sequence. We are a good group, sir.
I think it's so important to inculcate in children different skills as they grow up. And these skills, I feel, are more easily ingested by the children when they are young. We have in school children from 4 years to 16 to 18 years, right? At this time, children are not self-conscious. They are ready to try out and take risks. So I think this is the best time where you introduce different skills, whether it's sports, the arts, because I don't think we want technology and robots to take over our lives. Art, music, culture, dance, drama are so important in our human lives because it teaches us empathy, compassion, yes, understanding each other. So skills, sports, so important. We live so long these days, more than 80 years. And for that, I think I need to be well and fit. If I have dreams and I want those dreams to fructify, then I need to be fit for that. So sport, wellness, this is a regimen I think that we need to teach children in school the discipline and inculcate them the desire to carry it on as they grow older. So I think a skill is important.
Sure.
Yes.
Very valuable. in the book Hit Refresh, Satya Nadella speaks about empathy, and he says in the school he studied and played cricket, he learned the importance of collaboration and empathy, which has made him who he is today, right? So I think a lot goes beyond just the classroom into sports and dance and other things. Getting liberal arts to India, and if we had to take this question in a slightly more adolescent forward age, what would your response be to that, Parag?
See, there was a survey conducted of top 300 CEOs of by the American Management Association, and they spoke of 3 C's. So they were asked that kids today cannot carry on with one set of skill sets. So what kind of skill set will they need to survive in the future? And it spoke of 3 skill sets, and I have added 2 more to it. And it actually is an extension of what Nalini and Trupti have just mentioned. What they said is you need critical thinking, you need creativity, you need communication. But I added 2 more components to it. I said compassion and collaboration. I think unless and until we create a generation of people who have compassion and who have the capacity to collaborate with each other, because to my mind creativity is not a individual sport, creativity is a team sport. If you want to be innovative, you have to work and collaborate with people. And I don't think in the Indian education system creativity and critical thinking are taught formally, are not given enough importance. I think once the Rajas went away, once the entire monarchy in India went away, art lost its importance and it became sidelined. And I think it's time when we valued art and artists far more than we did. And we need to pay our teachers better. Our teachers have to be in the top rung of the society. I think I always say, you pay peanuts, you will get monkeys.
Yeah.
So we need to pay the teachers well. They really need to be appreciated for their effort. And it should be considered as good as being a doctor or an engineer or a software engineer to be a teacher. I think that's important.
Very valuable. My father is a retired educationist. He was a principal in a college. And one of the things I relate to is he and his colleagues, whomever I have met, there's a lot more nobility to the profession and purpose that they relate to. But yeah, there is a lot that can be done in terms of giving them the worth to who they are.
But I don't see any contradiction in being noble and being rich.
I'm not saying there's a contradiction. I'm just seeing what I've seen in life.
In fact, it's easier to
Yeah,
be noble.
It's easier to be
Yeah.
rich and
In both.
So I feel, Prajeet, we now need to work as a triumvirate. Management, principal and teachers and parents, keeping children in the center to grow their skills. We all watch movies. We have seen Tare Zameen Par, we have seen Three Idiots. And I believe Bollywood shows what actually the society now is. So we actually need to, think about those movies, and we need to appreciate what a person has in it. Every child is special. So you should judge what are the skills and try to, add value to those skills. Give them exposure of different level of society.
Yeah.
So when they're exposed, maybe children from very good families don't know what actually the condition of society today is. So we need to give them that exposure through schools, because that is the only time they get. 9 hours in a day, ma'am, I think 9 hours in a day they are in the school. You can't expect them to go home and then search where you're going to get that exposure. So it's the school's responsibility to give them that exposure.
So if that's the school's responsibility, let me also ask a related question then. We asked what is our strength, right? But if we were to say as educationists, what are we guilty of? Meaning this time I'm speaking about a kind of a limitation that we have created or exists in our education system. What are we guilty of? Complete this phrase.
Sir, I don't think I'm guilty of anything in my education system right now.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, I'm not talking
I-
anybody in person, but
yes.
I'm saying
But
as
I
a
think
society.
sometimes I feel guilty about not giving the students the freedom to choose. And perhaps that cannot be done in schools sometimes, because the mentors have to also be trained to take on what the children desire and want. So, training of the teachers is one step that we must take ahead, because every teacher has to have her or his self-development, self-esteem and knowledge. yes, uh, intact and more than the children have so that they can guide them. So
Thank
the
you.
freedom, I think.
So freedom, and no better person to actually extend this further than you because of Flame and some things that you've done in Flame. And to
I
throw
think
some
what
light.
we are guilty of is we don't foster failure. I don't think our society encourages failure. Right from the schooling system to our college, everybody has to pass. You're in the rat race, get ahead, kill, kick, get ahead. And we forget the journey and we are focused so much on the destination. I think that's what we are guilty of. And I think in a liberal arts environment, the pace is something one can choose, the order is something one can choose. Liberal arts is often misunderstood as something that gives you a lot of freedom. It's about the freedom to choose your subjects that you want to study, the pace at which you want to study them, and the order in which you want to study them. So I think to that extent, liberal arts solves many of the problems that ails our education system. I think if you read the latest government's education guideline, it speaks very extensively about liberal arts. And I think 2004, when I thought of liberal arts, everybody said you're way ahead of time. And I think I was right that India did need liberal arts. But I think we are guilty of not allowing failure. I think I saw this movie Chichore yesterday,
Yes.
and it's very nice. I think of course, there's glorification. In a story, you have to glorify everything. The point is that it's one movie that talks about, it's okay to fail in life. I think in America, if you fail the first time, they say it's okay. The second time you fail, the banker will give you a red carpet. The third time you fail, everybody's sure you're going to do well in life. Because you can't fail a fourth time unless you're a fool. But in India, if you're a 10th failure, you're finished. I am a 12th standard failure. I was a dyslexic as a kid. And my mother slapped me on my face and she told me that, Saraswati hamare ghar mein basti hai. Because my father was a doctor. My uncles were chartered accountants and professors in mathematics. And she said, hamare ghar mein Saraswati basti, you have insulted that Saraswati. And for the life of me, I couldn't make out what was wrong. And I felt very guilty of having failed. And I really punished myself a lot. I think I learned a lot from that failure. That it's okay to fail in life. It's okay to get up, fall down and get up, fall down and get up. As long as you don't give up, it's okay. I think we are guilty of that. I think the education system is preparing kids to get into a rat race. Yes.
That is what we were talking about also in the green room, that everyone is expected to get more than 95%.
That's right. That's right.
Anything below 95 is not acceptable to the parents. It's not about students. It's about the parents who are more...
And the process should be not of elimination but of selection.
Yes.
I think in a liberal arts environment, you want a variety of, you don't want only people who are good at mathematics or great at reasoning skills to join. You want artists, sports people, you want thinkers, psychologists, anybody, everybody to join. I think the process should be one of selection and not of elimination.
Sure. That actually also opens up a very nice point for us. You said you were dyslexic as a child, and you were in an inclusive school?
I was not in, my parents, my father had kept a teacher for me for a year to make out the difference. In Marathi 3 and 6 are mirror images.
Yeah.
And for the life of me, I couldn't figure out the difference.
Yeah.
So the teacher gave up at the end of 1 year.
Yeah.
But I didn't because I couldn't figure out the difference. And I didn't know I was dyslexic until I saw Tare Zameen Par actually.
Yeah.
And I actually wept like a baby when I saw that film. Because it was almost a reflection of my own life,
And
And
that's true.
dyslexic go through a lot of trouble because I had a lot of trouble, coping with everything that was going on around me. I'm sure, you have, all of us have come across kids who, and I feel special compassion and empathy for these kids. I think our education system has to become more inclusive. It has to, help parents understand that it's okay to have a kid who's dyslexic. It's okay to have a kid who's not, maybe he has attention deficit syndrome. It's okay to have that. I don't think our system is taking care of that. I think to that extent we are very guilty of that.
Yeah.
I think we need to work around that.
Very valuable point, and thanks for sharing that personal experience. Thanks for being open about the personal experience. Both of you, in some format, run an inclusive school. So you want to speak about the
Yes,
format?
Prajit. So we do have specially abled children in our schools. Yes, they are especially able because they have some quality order. Their cognitive thinking is very high. They are very courageous. So, and we follow a buddy system. So that is the way how we expose them to compassion, commitment. So there would be a buddy who would take care of the child who is specially abled. He would be actually waiting at the gate to receive him, take his bag up if he's not able to, and guide him through everything. So it's not that only teachers' responsibility then, we also involve students, and through that they learn how it has to be an inclusive society, how to accept what is different. So this is the practice we follow at our schools.
Nalini.
Yes, we are an inclusive school, and we have children who are differently abled, who are autistic, and I agree with you entirely. School is a microcosm of the society, and if we make children live with children who need help, I think as they grow up into society, they will be better people. We will have a better society, more compassionate, more empathetic. We also have a very special department for with our counselors, and we have 4 counselors. Actually, Vidya is one of them sitting here with us, and she looks
Hi, Vidya.
after. Yes, she looks after the children. We have special remediation programs for them, and as a like a buddy system. I'd like to say that one of our extremely autistic children who came to us in class 1 and couldn't even stand up and talk watching you eye to eye, or eat without, could not put a spoonful of food in his mouth, is today at ISA. He is one of the students at ISA. Yes. We have another little child who came to us with cerebral palsy, and little Akshay had a defect in his hand and leg, couldn't walk, and today he is one of our assistant teachers for drumming and teaches my 7th standard children. He is coming, yes. So we have a lot of stories like this, and I feel very pleased, Parag, that we are able to make a place for them and see what they want to do, what their dreams are, and help them to realize them. Yes.
That's very commendable work that these two ladies are doing here. I think more schools need to have more inclusive education. I think government needs, because I'm sure there are kids. I grew up in a village, so I know what life in a village is like. And I think government aided schools need to be more sensitive to this reality. And the other thing is, I was talking to somebody, a very renowned professor from Harvard yesterday, and he told me 2 things which I found which struck me very interestingly. He said 2 things. He said your grandchildren are going to live till the age of 115, because technology is changing so fast and so much research is going into life sciences, and his grandchildren will live up to the age of 150. That is the kind of lifespan we are talking of. Second thing he told me is that people with special learning abilities are actually way ahead of time, and they are very good at something that we haven't figured out, and their one part of their brain is so well developed. Like you just said, this boy ended up becoming a drummer, or somebody else went to ISER. I think that's a validation of what this gentleman was telling me, and I think it's fine to be specially abled. It's absolutely fine.
And I think that's the phrase. It's differently abled or specially abled, right? And today, if you see in the corporate world, there is so much of thrust on inclusion. And the other side of that, as it's called, diversity and inclusion, the other side of it is diversity. So, I want to create a context to this question, if it's okay with you, and then ask you this question. Interestingly, Mattel, which is the world's largest producer of toys, has done something remarkable this month. They launched Barbie, the Barbie doll, in a pilot dress. And they said this is to encourage women to look, young women, to look at the option of engineering, technology, the STEM options in education. US commercial pilots, there are less than 2% of women in commercial pilots. Less than 20% of leaders are women in Fortune 500 company as per Forbes. Interestingly, today's paper reports that in India, the women, female enrollments into higher education has grown by 1%, which is a great sign here. But considering all this, for us to create a society where tomorrow there is lot more diversity and lot more women, because even in India, in large corporations where we work, we realize that there are mandates to have at least 30% women in certain positions because a lot of positions are filled by men. I also want to quote one thing before I ask my question. Marissa Mayers, the CEO of Yahoo, reported to her job in 1.5 days from her delivery. And she said, I'm not less than any leaders in the organization, so I don't need a maternity. I'll live with the paternity leave that the company provides. And she says it's also the responsibility of women as much as the opportunities to create success for themselves. So considering this context of diversity, what can we do to build the real capabilities in women to pursue a very successful career?
You know, in the urban area, I feel we are a very small percentage of schools or people who children go to co-ed schools and girls are encouraged. It is in the villages and the outlying rural areas where I feel mothers need to be educated, parents need to be educated in very basics, like don't do away with a female fetus, right? Don't let children sit at home and cook and tend to a sibling because you have to go out and work in someone's house. I think that's where we need to bring about the changes, to educate, to make sure that the girls come up. In our societies, in our schools, girls are absolutely equal with the boys. I think even far ahead of the boys actually. Yes. We have children who are climbing the mountains. Yes. Who are in Taekwondo on the international scene. At Vidya Valley I'm talking. Yes. In wall climbing. Right. But I don't think we are the ones that we need to talk about. I think we need to educate the people who are not in the urban city areas. Yeah, that's my feeling.
I think my next initiative is going to be to train teachers in rural areas. I would like to do that because I think it's my time to multiply myself through others rather than create small institutions or small islands of excellence. I think I can create a better impact if I went out there in villages and trained teachers to be better teachers. I think technology has taken over so much that young women today are as hungry or even hungrier than men are. I think in a man's world, a woman has to scream that much louder, has to be tougher than she goes through a lot of difficulties. But I think at least urban women are standing up. And rural women, I think maybe 15 years down the line, there will be a sea change. They'll take over. That's my sense.
So, Prajit, we have teachers in our institution, in our organization, where they have joined the work next day after losing their partner or their parent. So, times are changing. Of course, as ma'am says, we need to work in the rural area, but in urban area, yes, it is changing with time. And I recently read in the newspaper that India is the country which has highest women pilots. So, of course, India is changing and we are coping with the men. I think we are, in fact, putting them back. Sorry, no offense to anybody, but I think women are more multitaskers as well. Yeah. They are more committed, they are more multitaskers. So, this is how we are getting the change.
As inferior as we might feel right now. But the reality is, even psychologically, it said that, the brain structure wise, women's brains are far more evolved. So, multitasking comes naturally to them.
The intuitive part of the women's brain is far more evolved than a man. I think their sense of danger and their sense of self-preservation is much higher than man's. And to that extent, they are definitely superior. And we got to respect them for that. There is no question about that. But there is something very disturbing that I am seeing. I get a lot of young girls who are joining my institution to become entrepreneurs. And then they want to join their family businesses. They find it very difficult to get acceptance in the family business. They say, "Tum kya shaadi karke chale jaane wali ho?" I think that's something that has to change. And I tell these girls that you must fight. No, you have to. The father is willing to fight, but maybe the uncle is putting down the girl. And in a joint family system, a lot of problems occur of this kind. I think even in urban areas, these kind of problems are there,
Still there, yes.
and I think we need to work around that.
So very valuable. Yeah, Nalini, go ahead.
Also, like marriage, age of marriage, a girl is looked down upon if she is beyond 23, 24, 25. You say, abhi tak shadi nahi hui hai? That sort of puts a brake on what they want to do. We have to accept, it doesn't matter. Before this session, there was something on love, lust, and longing, right? And I think even if girls are living in, it doesn't matter. If they want to have a career, I think we need to accept it and encourage it. And not say, get married, have your children, sit in the kitchen and cook. I think we need to change those ideologies.
We need
Right?
to have
Yeah.
a more broader look towards this. As a society, we need to look it in a more broader way.
Fantastic.
I learned my lesson the hard way. When my daughter was born, I was very happy. I said, I'm going to have somebody who's going to be a little more accommodating, less demanding. But that's the perception I had. And when my son was to be born, I was taking care of my daughter for about 10 days. And my God, she turned out to be such a bundle of questions and activity that she wore me out completely. And I was wondering how my wife was taking care of my daughter in those days. And I realized that it's really, I think, hats off to women for taking care of their families and taking care of their job. I think they deserve.
And school sometimes, right?
So that is why we have more female teachers in schools rather than male teachers. Miss, if you may agree to this.
But that I think is for a different reason. I think we don't, as you said, pay our teachers well. And that needs to change. If they are the head of the family and I'm
They
a
are the
woman
breadwinner.
working in a school, I definitely cannot tend to my family on my salary. Right?
Very valuable. In fact, there's a message I read once which said, all women work hard. Some of them get paid. So everybody's working, right? Not enough. So actually, my next question stems from there, saying that we have been so far speaking about what educationists should do to create this change. But there have been 2-3 points that came up in this conversation where you said we will have to go back, educate the mothers in rural areas and so on. It also brings in the role of a parent. So as an educationist right now, if you had to speak about something that the parents should take care, what would that be? 1 point each. I know the list can be long.
I think what I want the parent to do is to, the children that come to school, to feed them well, yes, put them to bed at a correct time, not give them a mobile from 6 months old, because I often see parents in the restaurant, they are ordering food, but the child has a mobile switched on and they are looking at it. So, very little thing. Discuss, talk to them, don't talk down at them, accept what they are saying, have faith that your children, they are your children, you have brought them up. Have faith in what they are saying and guide them. I think don't interfere whether they have homework, whether test unit 1 has been done, term 1 has been done, leave it to the teachers. Just bring them up with a lot of love. That's what I feel. Yeah,
So
thank
I
you.
think Vidya Vaidhi and Wisdom World follow quite few similar lines. So we often tell our parents that you do only parenting. Leave learning and teaching to teachers here. Be acceptable to what your child is. Talk to them. Accept what they are and talk about their problems to us. Why do you want to hide if there is something which is a timing issue? Any issue is only timing. If you solve it, if you can talk about it, you can solve it. And once you resolve it, it's going to be taken care of. So we generally don't accept what our child is going through because everything has shifted. The adolescence age has also shifted. It was before 13. I think it's 9, 10 now. So why don't we accept that, yeah, there is a change. And why don't we talk about it? So let's be more vocal, let's be more sharing, let us guide them, give them some quality time. Instead of quantity time, give them some quality time, which is very much needed.
I think my take on this is that kids today, I always tell students that you got to identify who your primary system is, who your secondary system, and what your tertiary system is like. Primary system is your parents, your best friend, your brother, sister, sibling, or whatever your joint family system is. And this is the system in which you are who you really are. You can wear whatever clothes you want, you can sit with your legs up, and you can just be yourself. And secondary system is a system where you are supposed to be properly, like this is a secondary system. Yes, this is a formal environment. You're supposed to come across to people the right way. The problem with the young generation is they make the secondary system their primary system and primary system their secondary. So when they are going to go to the pub or the disc, the girl will wear a jean and a t-shirt, go out and wear a short skirt and go to the pub. I think that's where the parents need to really understand what is happening. I think parents need to encourage their children and understand what they are going through. Rather than in Marathi there is a saying, माझं ते बाळ दुसऱ्याचं ते कार्ट. So mine is the baby and the other one is a brat, That's not the truth. Parents need to understand that they have to become their best friends and not just be the father, mother that they have to be. And I think from my side I can say one thing as a parent, one thing I followed very, very religiously was to be home every day, 365 days of the year at 8:30 at home. 8:30 we would sit on the dining table, no mobile phone, no TV, no talking shop. We spoke about everything else. 8:30 to 10:30, 2 hours of quality time I gave to my kids. 10:30 they had to go to bed. And I think my kids have turned out fine. They're fine young men.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing that. Now, here's a question again. I'll share some stats with you and then ask you the question. There's a last question before we open up for Q&A. So I'm going to request you to be ready with your questions if you have any. So People Matters for India, it says it's the youngest country producing 1.28, around 1 crore 28 lakhs job seekers every year. Financial Express says we produce only 4.69% formally skilled workforce ready to take up the jobs to deliver results. China is at 24%, US is at 52%, UK is at 68%, Germany 75%, and Japan is at 80%, most developed countries. Karnataka says that in engineering colleges, out of unemployment, when they did their survey, 85% of students don't get jobs because of employability skills. Now, in an environment where even smaller countries like Singapore do vocational courses starting from 6th in schools, what can we really do to build skills which are beyond exams, meaning it would get them employment, jobs, make them successful at their jobs? What can happen in schools for that, or in any format of education for that?
The boards do have vocational courses, but somehow, sorry to say, but parents look down sometimes on vocational courses. But we are trying to include vocational courses for children. Like definitely the children at Vidya Valley do a lot of art. We have invited people in to talk about art, because art will then lead to design schools and then go on. In fact, we have 3 little students here of ours who are done art and I think going on to do design later on. The curriculum has to change a little bit to incorporate this. We take them for visits to parents who have manufacturing factories and concerns, and then we call them in also to talk to the parents. I think colleges have sandwich courses where they intern.
You're right, but I think parents have to accept that not everybody has to be a white-collared worker. I think we got to, respect masons and plumbers and electricians as much as we respect an engineer. I know of at least so many electricians who are better than most engineers I know. I know so many masons who understand drawing better than any engineer does. I think that has to change, and once that changes, I think our employability quotient will go up.
Taking that forward, we should have dignity of work. From the day we start the school, although we have very good housekeeping staff, we make our children do the work. Even the toilets are cleaned by children, so that they don't give that mean look to the one who is doing that work. We need them to go for more vocational courses, as ma'am already mentioned, that all the each and every board has those vocational courses, but we as parents don't accept it because we, as I told, we are all in that rat race. We want our children to get only 95 and above. And when you take vocational courses, maybe the percentage may go down, or it's not that much acceptable to the peer group of the parent. We don't look arts. We don't look at arts with very good, always engineers and doctors are looked up to, and not the art students. So I think that mentality has to change.
In a small way, at Vidya Valley, we are starting a tinkering lab actually, where we want to put carpentry, also tinkering with the TV, the radios. So we are trying to put that into place with help of parents who are already have manufacturing agencies. I remember talking about these skill sets. At home we had a TV set, and for 1 or 2 days we couldn't see anything. So all of us were stamping our feet and saying, this cable operator, the electrician, I don't know what to do. And my husband's also here. He's an IT engineer. And then we called up this cable company and said that, what is happening? We've paid and the TV is not working. He said, "Main aata hoon." So he came and he put his hand behind the TV and switched on the switch. And voila, there was our television. So I think we all need to learn. Yes.
So that is educated to retreat.
Educated to literate, yeah. I think that opens up the theme also for the questions. So I'm going to request you to raise your hands if you have questions. We might not be able to take all the questions. I'll just point my hand towards people, and will you walk that up? You have the first question.
I have the first question, and I haven't been able to ask a question since morning. So can I please take advantage of my position a little bit and just ask a question to the panel?
Oh, you just took the privilege away all through, huh? Okay, keep the question short, please.
Yes. So basically what I've noticed in the syllabus books is there's a lot of mistakes in the books itself. So growing up, we're not getting the right material even to study. So when we're talking about all these aspects of education, we are not even being prepared for what we're going to study later on. So school is just limited to school itself. So like so we had a session on Marathi Sahitya before, and I remember we had a poem in 6th grade, I'm not even joking, Bug, bug, ghar, bug, ai, ghar, bug. That's it. And the level of that Marathi in itself is so low. And if that's what we will be learning in school instead of maybe perhaps doing taxes or maybe...
Question. You need to get to the question.
How do schools ensure that the syllabus itself is extremely, important or valuable to the students?
Perfect. So I think it goes back to the infrastructure, the core infrastructure in which the whole system operates. Anybody can take this question.
Also, we are encouraging teachers not to use the textbook only, because that is actually a publisher puts out a textbook which we read. Why do we need these textbooks? We are a huge country. We have hundreds and millions of children, right? If we did not have some guideline, we would be floundering. So you need a guideline, which is good, and every board sets out a curriculum and a syllabus, but nobody says stick to that. That minimum level of learning is not necessary. You can go beyond it. That's why we talk about training of teachers and taking them beyond the syllabus.
Sure. And I think that also says that the ownership is a lot more on the schools to prepare them. Yep.
I think what you have to understand is that the government wants fewer students to fail. So they keep lowering standards so that more and more students will pass. With the result, there is so much pressure on the government that you don't want students to be failures in 10th standard. You want maximum to pass out. And you keep lowering standards. And teachers don't know that. So teachers are teaching what is there in the curriculum. I think if we encourage teachers to look beyond curriculum, I know of teachers where I'm told that in France there is an institute called INSEAD, which is the top 10 management institute. And I'm told that if you walked in on a certain day, at a certain time, the professor will be saying this line. It is that much structured. I think it's too much. I can't imagine ever going into class and teaching the same thing every time I go. I think teachers have to go beyond that. I think yes, you're right, but The problem is both with the system and the schools and the owners to tell the teachers that look, you got to prepare them for a lifetime and not their first jobs or their first college.
I also want to say a little
Yeah.
bit about this. You know, world over, there are many projects floated for schools and children. It is up to us to accept it, like NASA. It floats a project on space settlement. Our children from the 6th and 7th class are encouraged to look at it. Teachers take out time twice a week after school to sit with them and guide them. Parents jump in to help them research and come up with projects. So you don't have to stick to a curriculum. Right.
All right, one question there, sir.
Actually, it's not a question. I would like to throw a challenge to this panel of very eminent educationists and that are here. That I think from all the successes that you have achieved in the various ways that you have brought education to a standard, maybe a small white paper could be prepared which could be shared with others so that some more people can benefit from the systems that you have followed, and even if 5 or 10 schools adopt that, I think we'll be bringing about a change.
So
Thank
we are actually doing that process at Wisdom, and also the board is taking an initiative and trying to make the virtual classrooms where they are going to pick up the best teachers from different areas and make the virtual classes and send it across so we can share our practices there.
A very valid point. Thanks for sharing that. And I think knowledge sharing is the future. Yeah.
I think my problem is when you prepare a paper, then it becomes static, whereas you are constantly evolving and learning. So I think my difficulty in preparing a paper means that it's cast in stone.
Sure.
And I think I'm still learning. I don't think I'm prepared for that as yet.
That lady there. Yeah. Somehow she's been raising her hand even before we started Q&A. So.
And thank you. By the way, I'm an undergraduate student at Flame. So I just wanted to mention that absolutely recommended for anyone considering any sort of undergraduate education. My question though specifically is that why aren't we exposed to certain narratives at a school level that are very much rooted in present realities? For example, despite being from an alternate learning school, I was never exposed to the caste system, to what's happening in Kashmir, to sexuality, to how my life is architectured around patriarchal narratives and frameworks. Shouldn't we be broadening or diversifying our curriculum from a school level itself? That's a good point.
So we have different motivational speakers coming up. We have Arunata Singh coming up. Tomorrow we are having Lakshmi Agrawal, who is an acid attack survivor, coming up to the school. And they do expose you to different areas and different challenges what they have faced in their life. So that we have people like Naren Goitani coming regularly and talking to parents and teachers there. So that is being already done in I think most of the schools now.
So you're saying creating an engagement with the
Yes,
outer world is
yes,
far higher right
yes.
now. Okay. All right. So on that note,
I think you must congratulate the girl from Flame University
No, I want to take
Yes.
closing
because she was
comments.
very articulate, and I think we
Yeah.
must have done something right
Yeah.
at Flame.
So, how many of you have questions? Raise your hand. I've got a good news and a bad news. Good news, speakers available immediately after this to answer questions one to one. Bad news, we are out of time, okay? So here's my last closing remark from all of you. If we had got all the educationists of the country through a video conferencing right now, and you had a chance to give them one message in a line or two, and tell them something that will benefit the education system all through, what would be that one or two lines you would want to tell them?
I would tell them focus on the Bloom's taxonomy, focus on training people not just to rote learn formulas and apply them to word problems, but to think beyond, look at synthesizing disparate data, critical thinking and creativity. I think all the 5 levels in the pyramid need to be covered. I think that would be my message.
Bloom's taxonomy being the base. Thanks so much for sharing that, Nalini.
I think I would say manners maketh a man.
Yeah.
Social manners, compassionate values, right? Understanding that the globe is getting smaller. I think it's not just please, thank you, but so much that goes along with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Trupti.
That let it be a learning process than being a teaching process. Let learning happen in the school and not the teaching happen in the school.
Thank you. Thanks so much. A big round of applause for the panelists. Thanks for being here.